All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another Spin That Shit podcast. Today's guest is a big one. One I am so thrilled that we had on. Super guy, Dylan Walshe. He is a great artist, solo act. He does it all. He has all the bells and whistles. He's captivating, great lyricist. Highly recommend him. He's on all the social media, streaming platforms, all that good stuff. And he's got a website, so check him out. We're going to talk about writing music, a little bit of touring, a little bit about the Muddy Roots Festival I just recently saw him at about a month ago, and yeah, all that good stuff. So before we do that, I do want to say thanks for all the likes, the shares. We're growing, we're slowly on the rise, you know. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, of course, so subscribe, like, share, continue that for me. I'd really appreciate it. And there's a link below if you would like to donate. So we have no sponsors. This is all for fun. We're a super chill, laid-back show. So with that being said, let's go talk to Dylan and have some fun. All right, Dylan. Appreciate you joining me on Spin That Shit podcast.
No problem, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, we did chat a little bit there at Muddy Roots. It's a hectic weekend.
Yeah, I would agree. And not as hectic as it can be, but hectic enough.
Yeah. So what I like to do with people that have been on the show for the first time, I kind of like to start with a background. If you can kind of tell us where you're from, what influenced you, kind of how you got started playing music.
All right, I'll have to think about that. Well, I'm from Dublin, Ireland, not the city, but the county, you know. Southeast coast of Dublin. It's been a long time since I've been asked anything like that. Let me see. Originally, I guess when I started playing music, there was a lot of indie music, really. And at home, strictly speaking, indie over here more means kind of small label stuff and that. But back home, it'll be more like I don't know, what would you say? Working class kind of guitar, rock and roll, basically, you know. Like, you know, Oasis and people like that, which is pretty boring looking back now, but at the time it was pretty exciting, you know.
Yeah.
It was because I was born in 81, so I was a teenager in the 90s, so that was still, working class culture was still in the charts and on MTV and all that stuff, you know.
Right. Yeah, I grew up throughout the 90s too, as a teen and young kid, really, till the second half of the 90s. But yeah, the 90s grunge movement and all that good stuff. Captivating. It's still good. I still love it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there was always folk music, and all the stuff that I do now was always in my life. You know, it was always around. I mean, it's Ireland. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it wasn't like I gradually got into that stuff. It was just always there. I don't know. You know, when you're younger, it's more about the energy, you know? And then when you get a little bit older, it's probably a bit more about the musicianship and, you know, how things feel and stuff, you know, I don't know. But when I was young, it was more kind of the attitude and the energy, and so we kind of took to those bands who were kind of going, fuck you, we're the best band in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I was right up that alley for sure.
All the stuff that's not very popular to say now, you know.
Right, yeah. Getting in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, well, in the 90s, I feel like that was like you were celebrated for being different, you know? And because working class stuff was still in the mainstream, they kind of had a chip on their shoulder and something to prove, you know? I could relate to all that stuff, and I just enjoyed it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know, after a while, I started following the songs. I mean, I followed the songs when I was pretty young. I can remember, like, asking my parents to put on, like, Bob Dylan and the band and Beatles records. I'd sit there and have my headphones on, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, and kind of read along to the lyrics on the back of the vinyl and stuff, you know. So it was kind of...
Really? So that's pretty young, really, to be captivated.
Yeah, well, yeah. I remember my sister, she was like 3 or 4 years older than me, well, 3. And she used to come down and go, you know, what the fuck are you doing listening to the fucking Beatles, you know, like cheering me, you know. And then by the time she was about 17 or 18 or 19, she was listening to him. But I was listening to him like when I was 4 or 5, you know.
You're like, see, I told you, I knew what I was talking about.
And even now, the Beatles still sounds like children's music to me. I know that people are not going to agree with that or like me saying that, but that's how it feels when I hear it, you know.
There's some songs I'll never understand, and I like the Beatles for what they did as far as the movement and not being restricted by certain sounds and experimenting. But man, some of them songs, they are like children's songs, and
yeah, it was just the color and the energy and just the characters and how it was all presented and just the soundscapes. You know, it was like I guess when people like kids read storybooks now or picture books, it was kind of just felt like that way to me. But there was an audio that went with it. You know, right. I didn't really look into it too much, but my father was very big into lyrics. So when I got a little bit older, like 6, 7, 8, he would stop like Bob Dylan records and go, listen to this lyric. And he'd play it again and go, listen, do you hear it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was kind of getting programmed pretty young, but without even knowing it, you know, I guess.
Right. So when did you pick up a guitar?
I wasn't from a music family. I was from a music loving family, but nobody in my direct family or my house played music at all. So I picked up a guitar relatively late compared to music families, I guess. I was about 15, maybe 15.
Yeah.
Tail end of 15. I was working and I was cycling from school to work in my uncle's garage to clean the floors and pump the petrol. And I got enough money for my first guitar. I actually got a lot. My father borrowed me a guitar from one of the mechanics first. And I was left-handed and I didn't quite figure out that I'd have to have a left-handed guitar, you know. Yeah. So I was playing a right-handed guitar upside down for a while.
That's like Elizabeth Cotton and stuff. You know?
Well, she got it down.
Cool. So then you ended up adding in some other stuff. You play the harp a little bit, harmonica, and
yeah,
that come a little later. Or did you try and just do it all at once?
Well, originally I had no idea what I was doing at all. I just wanted to join in. I just had a feeling that I wanted to join in. I wanted to see what it felt like being a part of the music, you know. I mean, that was my original motivation. I always kind of sang along to stuff, but it was never like an encouraged thing. Where I'm from, people didn't really play music. I mean, I found out years later that some people kind of did, and kind of casually, but I never saw it or heard it. And I had a friend who also had a guitar, and he didn't tell anybody, and I didn't tell anybody I had a guitar, because it was just that kind of place, and you just don't want to deal with the hassle, you know. But his brother was jeering him one day about having a guitar, and I heard it. So when his brother wasn't around, I was like, "You got a guitar? I got one too," you know. And that was the beginning. Yeah, so that was the beginning of making music, you know. And then we actually started in school. When school would finish, we'd go to one of the classrooms and play out, you know. But I mean, we had no clue what we were doing.
Yeah,
at all.
Fun.
Yeah, just trying to figure it out, you know. And a lot of we hesitated a lot about it too, you know. We got a lot of there was a lot mentally holding us back. At least we felt that way. But that's where all the aggro and the kind of fuck you stuff came from, and the indie music. We loved that release, you know, because you did feel so being different wasn't celebrated, you know, in my areas and anyway, you know. But gradually I played the drums for a while. I never really sang. I started singing a little bit here and there, and then I just end up writing my own songs. I mean, I start writing my own songs pretty much straight away. What I did originally was I rewrote songs just without thinking about it. Like, I would listen to a song and I would rewrite it, and I would leave the lyrics just there, and I wouldn't remember what I wrote the lyrics to, and then I'd come back to them another time and then I would write music to it. So the lyrics would have been already formatted without intentionally writing a new song, if you know what I mean.
Right. It'd already kind of be somewhat mapped out.
Yeah. So then when I come back to it, I wouldn't remember what it was from, and I would just put music to it then, and then it would just be a song. And after a few years, I moved over to London, and when I got to London, it was just a busier city and a lot more intense, and I figured out if I played a harmonica that I could be a bit more percussive and a bit more rhythm. It got me into busier environments, and then when I got into those environments, I realized if you could hear my feet, like stomping or whatever, that I can get into bigger environments again and busier. So I walk into a room with people drunk and being loud and leery, and you got the stomp box, you got the harmonica, you got a bit of, you got the weapons, you know.
Yeah,
You didn't just have to sing ballads and hope people would listen. You can kind of stick it to them a little bit, you know.
that's right. I think that's the hardest thing, especially for a solo artist. Um, there's there's things out there that guys can do that are awesome, but they just, if you can't command the audience or captivate them, it's really tough, in the live scene. Um,
Mhm. I think
that's
that
one thing you do well. I will say that. Muddy Roots, everyone shut up. You know how crazy everyone gets there and half drunk. And for the most part, everyone was fixated, listening to like every line, hook. I was right there in the front and I was just mesmerized, because it was my first time seeing you. So I was really thrilled.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I mean that comes and goes for me. I mean that's not a thing. You just I've experienced that many times, and I experienced what you experienced then. But again, when that happens, it's not about what I'm doing. It's just about the environment, you know. And I just feel like I become a part of that environment, and I feel like a lot of the time when that doesn't happen, there's just things stopping it from happening, you know. And it's like it can be frustrating because when you are a very feely musician who I don't know, has an atmosphere or a lyrical content, you need an atmosphere for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can command it, and yes, you can do certain things, but sometimes you can't, you know, and that's up to everybody else. You can a little bit, but once that happens, it just changes the music, it changes the artist, it changes the audience. Everyone just becomes a part of something that they're just, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I know exactly
I
what you're
never
talking
looked at it
about.
like that, how you mentioned it. Yeah, I guess I'm sure there's times where it doesn't flow like that based on the environment. Uh,
And there's literally
but
nothing you can do. I've seen artists hush thousands of people. I've seen the same artist be shouted over by 10 people. Like it's not something you can always. It's not something you can just do. You know. It's
yeah,
always. It's There's always a chance it's not going to work. Always there.
right. I think what helps for you too, like when you were in between songs and you would kind of give a little background of what
Mhm.
particular song you were doing or how it was, you know, made or whatever. That kind of grabbed them initially, then you take off into it. I think that helps.
Yeah. Well, that came way later. I used to get up there and just have my head down, going, I don't have to talk to anybody. I'm here to play music. You know, like, and I barely even look up. You know.
Yeah,
And then I got to a point. You just get to a point where you accept you're on stage. It's like, what? Why are you here? You know.
yeah,
It's like you're on stage. You have to accept that. And I feel like once you do that, your eyes start to open a bit more, and you start to kind of have that thing that I was talking about. You become a part of something. It's no longer just what you're doing because you're giving yourself to it as well. You know. So
mm-hmm.
then obviously because I'm from Ireland and I'm in America, I'm very aware when I talk, it's a little different, or my experiences of life might be slightly different. And it took me a while to accept that too. And there's all these different things that I don't have to try at in order for people to be maybe a little bit interested. You know what I mean? Just even the fact that I'm Irish could interest someone, and like, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I got no choice in that. Like, it's not something I'm doing. You know.
yeah,
There was a song I released. The first song I ever released was about something very particular, and somebody said to me, they said, it's not just what you're saying, it's how you're saying it, your voice, your accent, that also tells a story. And that was kind of an eye-opening thing for me. It was a German person who told me that. And from then on in, I was kind of like, I never looked at it that way. You know, you're hearing the history of my country maybe in my accent, or you might hear your old relatives or your friend who is Irish. There's all these other things that are going on in what you're doing other than what you're saying, you know?
right. Yeah, I think that's a big thing that makes um your style appealing to folks, especially if you like folk music or any sort of music really. Just like recently I did ancestry and I looked up my roots and how they came across, and I'm always thinking in my mind like how the fiddle came over here and
Mm.
all that stuff in the Appalachian mountains. And I love that deep culture history, and I found I got a little Irish in me.
Well, let me ask you then, when you see someone like me or someone where I'm from playing music, do you think of all that stuff?
Yeah,
We see, but that's not,
maybe
that's, I
maybe
can't
not.
control that, you know?
No, yeah, you can't, and maybe that might have been an initial thought, but you know after time and listening, and you just start thinking about other things, maybe just diving into what the actual song's about. But the initial appearance and sound, that's where I probably went first,
Yeah.
like
Well,
rooted folk, you know.
that's the thing, and it's the same for American artists when they go to Ireland or Europe, and when Irish artists come over here, you just have that initial kind of, I don't know, there's a bit of an in about it, you know, you're kind of in for a second, but you gotta have the goods, you gotta have something once
Oh
you
yeah.
start. But initially, you just that little door opens a little bit further, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's I
Yeah.
don't know, man, but you're talking about the Appalachian Mountains. I mean, I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, and you know, up in the north of Ireland, there's a place called Slieve League Mountains,
Uh-huh.
and that's now recognized as the International Appalachian Trail. So the International Appalachian Trail goes through Northern Ireland, some of Britain, Scotland, across Germany, and a little bit into Scandinavia, and I think a couple of other places. So a lot of those people, when they originally left that region of the world, they went to live in the same mountain range. Now I know there's a landscape difference and a climate difference, but essentially it would have looked and felt reasonably similar, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm.
I always wanted to visit there, so I'll have to hit you up on tour.
Yeah.
Figure out what mountain range I need to go climb when I'm overseas.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you more. Muddy Roots, that performance, for me, a lot of music is feeling, and you were fairly emotional for that performance because Keith, I never met him, but he sounded amazing. It made me want to meet the guy after hearing
Yeah.
all the stories from around there from everyone. So what was that like? Was it kind of overwhelming to come into
Yeah.
that situation because it was been a
Yeah.
while?
Yeah, man, it's like everything. Like everything. So I had a serious accident in 2012, and up to that point I had played music, but I always had like day jobs and stuff, you know, and never really got a decent day job because I was always thinking of music, and never really progressed in music because all my energies went to the day job, you know.
Right.
So following that, I just hit Europe in 2013, and I just, you know, start going where I could, playing where I could play, and I ended up at a festival in Belgium, which was the European version of Muddy Roots,
Right.
which is 2013. So I was in the field with the guitar, and I wasn't even booked, you know. And there was a band from Brazil who had their visa either delayed or denied, one or the other. I couldn't tell you, so they couldn't make it. So I'm in the field playing guitar. I just hopped in one of the vans, you know, probably sleeping on my guitar case, and one of my friends was stage managing. And he kind of put two and two together, and he was like, you know, do you want to go up and play a set? And I was like, at first I kind of thought, no, I don't do that. I've been drinking a lot, you know. And I thought, no, I will. And I did. I got up and played, and Jason, who you talked to recently, he saw me playing a little bit, and after the festival, he was like, you know, I like what you're doing, and blah, blah, blah. And we kept in touch. He flew me over to the States in 2014 to initially record and go to Focal Lines, which
Wow.
was
That's
in
awesome.
Kansas City at the time. And on that visit, I met my now wife. So we had a long distance relationship for a few years. I eventually moved over in 2016, and in between, I had done all kinds of Muddy Roots events: Europe, Kansas City, Focal Lines, Tomato Fest, Americana Fest. I even opened the vinyl record shop that they had here in Nashville. So this went deep in my life, you know.
Right.
And then just things started to happen. I started doing other things, and, you know, there was just a lot going on. And I just took a step back for a while and before I knew it was 5 years had passed, you know. So that time
Right.
when you saw me there was 5 years since I've been around those events. So what I was saying before shows you how deep it went into my life, you know.
Yeah.
And then you got, like you said, some of our friends are no longer around, and it's just a lot, man, you know. And then there was the pandemic, and, you know, you're a little bit older, and I'm sober now, and just, so, you know.
Yeah.
It
It's
can
a
be
lot all at
overwhelming.
once.
It can be overwhelming when it's there in front of you, just kind of staring you in the face, you know.
Right.
And that stage as well was really weird because that tent is the best place to play, I think, especially for acoustics, you know. But typically that stage is higher. So when you're sitting on the stage, you can be anywhere and you see the performer. But for whatever reason, the year just gone or whatever it was, a few weeks ago, a month ago, it was only about that high off the ground.
Yeah.
So nobody could see it beyond the stage. So everybody came up around the stage. So when
they
you're
were
sitting on the
circled
stage,
around you.
yeah. So when you're sitting on the stage, you're looking around as all these people kind of looking down on you. I mean, that just added to it, you know. I guess that kind of helped. So
Yeah. That was great. I'll never forget it. I mean, it was a memorable performance, and I think a lot of people there really enjoyed it. So you were talking about writing. I'm big on the writing process. We bring it up a lot here. Switching gears a little bit. You mentioned how you were just kind of you'd rewrite a song and leave it alone. That's how you started. Do you still write like that, or you kind of do something different?
I actually don't, but I accidentally did it recently. So unbeknownst to myself, yes, I still do. I must. I just have. I lived in London twice. First time I had an amazing time. Second time I had a terrible time, you know. And I just find it hard looking back and thinking back. And there's a song by the Pogues called Lullaby of London. And it just put me back in London, and it gave me a sense of peace and ease. And before I knew it, I had rewritten the song in my head. That was about a year and a half ago now. So that's the last time I did that. But it was kind of accidental. It wasn't intentional, you know. But originally, that's what I did. I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I knew lyrics were important. I knew how delivering a lyric, how important that was. My diction and stuff is not great, so all I really have is just the guts of it, you know. And like I said, my father used to start and stop records and point out lyrics, and I was, as much as he would do that and he would show me that, I obviously had the same thing he did, because I got a kick out of how people said things in songs. Like it moved me. You know what I mean? Like
Emphasize a word, or
yeah, you hear
pronounce,
some,
or
yeah, all of it, and I'll be like, fuck, you know, that was good. You know, it just make the hair stand up, make your blood go move, you know. And after a while, then I used to just free write. I would sit down and I get a pen and paper, and I would just write for pages, and I wouldn't have any form, any goal, nothing. And then I would just go back through the pages and condense them into a song. That was the second level of what I did as a writer. After that, I traveled so much, I would just jot down ideas, and then I'd go back later, because a lot of the stuff, you know, when you're younger, there's a lot of things that kind of happen in a very obvious cycle in your life, like, you know, like trying to have a relationship, or trying to do this, or trying to do that. And so when you're writing down little notes and little lines, you'll find a lot of them about the same stuff. So yeah. I could go back and pull them into a song. But eventually, I would just, when I was traveling, I would just kind of sit there and just kind of stare out the window, and I'd think of an idea, and I would just let it simmer until it settled, and I'd be going, okay, that's one line, you know, and then I'll do it again and just kind of just build it, you know.
Yeah.
And I took so long in the end doing that I had to kind of give myself a kick up the arse and kind of be like, you got to do a bit more than what you're doing. You can't just sit there the whole time daydreaming, you know. I got to the point then when I was writing very little, so I had to kind of be a bit more disciplined and a bit more intent. But I'm back to that place again now where I just, you know, if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't, you know.
Right.
Which I know it sounds kind of lazy, but it's been a weird time, man. You know, like, I find the busier I am, the more creative I am. You know, it kind of all happens at the same time. Once everything's moving Like if I know I've got a tour coming up of 40 days or 2 months, I want new songs for it, you know.
So you
If I
start
say again,
working hard, crunching it
yeah.
in.
Well, it's just like if I know I'm not going to be touring for the next 6 months because everybody's locked down, I'm like the motivation's kind of gone, you know.
Yeah.
And not that I don't play music and I don't be creative and do stuff. I just don't have that push to finish anything, you know. I don't have that push the intent to form a song. I'll just
Right.
have all these little scrappy bits that, you know, record into your phone or written on a bit of paper. I've got a bundle of paper like about that high of just utter nonsense, you know. It's almost just a habit, you know. I'll write that down, it just goes in the pile, you know.
Yeah.
And what
So,
about yourself?
I,
How do you do it?
oh, I don't write.
And you got to start. If you're
I
gonna
know.
listen to how everybody else is doing, you gotta apply yourself.
Yeah, I don't have a voice. I think I could be a ghostwriter. I think I'm creative in writing. I went to art school, liberal arts school, and I've done video work, photography, all other ways of expressing myself through art. And vocally, I can't sing. I'll play a little banjo, and that's about it.
So you do want to write, though. It sounds like you do.
Oh yeah, for sure. I wrote
I
little
bet
things
you
here and
do.
there.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I bet you have. You're lying to me.
I'll write your next song for you. So how about touring right now? You had a big line of stuff ahead of you, or are you going to wait till 2022, or what's in
Yeah.
the works?
I mean, my usual answer to this stuff at the moment is I don't know. I don't know. But I've got a couple of gigs. I played last night actually. It was not very good. I just wasn't very good. I get these things after the pandemic where I just walk into a room and immediately I know I'm not kind of ready. I don't mind the music so much just to be social and embracing and
Yeah,
thankful, you know what I mean? And I kind of disappear into the corner and I know I'm going to be like that for the rest of the night. And sometimes that will rub off when I'm on stage and continue into the music, and then I kind of feel a bit bummed out about that. But that kind of happened last night. But I've got a couple of gigs next week. I've got one in Frederick, Maryland with Possessed by Paul James, and then I've got
oh, I
one
saw that.
in Raleigh in North Carolina. I'm on my own for that one, and I'm currently putting out the feelers for some stuff in Europe, UK, and Ireland because I just got my passport renewed, and it's time I went home for a bit. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, I love Possessed by Paul James. I've seen him a handful of times, and another solo artist that can really get down.
Yeah, absolutely. He's mesmerizing. His footwork, I just watch his foot all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, his legs get to going and wobbling all around, and he gets into it. I love it.
And he's got that thing in his music where he plays a fretless instrument like a fiddle, you know. I feel like that's just a different thing. Once you get into the fretless instruments, there's just a lot more, if you can play them, there's a lot more just freedom to it. Much like there is in singing, you know.
Yeah,
I
there's
feel
truth to that.
with the guitars and stuff, it's just a bit more like, you know. Do, 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 do.
Scale it down.
Yeah, you know. Not that I can do any of that shit either.
Sound good to me. Um, so I usually ask a couple random questions on these. If there was an instrument you could play and you wake up tomorrow and you could play it perfectly, what instrument would it be?
Oh. I've gone through a couple of phases. I think my latest one's probably accordion. I'd like to be able to play accordion pretty good. The thing baffles the head out of me though. I mean, I'm a visual. When it comes to, I don't know how instruments work, the mathematics of it, and you know, it just, I'm not, my brain isn't that way. So when I
Yeah.
look at something like the accordion and I see all those buttons, I'm just kind of like, but
Yeah,
I
I
can,
can't.
I can figure something out. But I just got to remember how it looks, you know.
Yeah, it looks like a challenge for sure, to say the least. Accordion.
Well, I've been watching a lot of accordion players the last few years, and I notice a lot of them don't use a lot of the bass buttons, you know, which is surprising. The more I took an interest in watching how it was played, the more I realized a lot of accordion players just use the piano side of it, you know, which is pretty linear. I mean, that's not that puzzling.
Yeah,
It's just a straight line. It's just a straight line of keys, you know.
right. Okay, the other question I got for you is what's kind of off the radar, what artist wise or song wise that you listen to that people wouldn't think you liked, something that's off the wall,
Uh,
like Britney Spears or something.
oh, well, she's not off the wall. She's all right. Well, she went off the wall for a bit, didn't she? Well, she's said to have.
Yeah.
I guess you don't really know what done there. That's a whole other thing. I like. I'm definitely a sucker for like catchy pop songs
Yeah.
because we're fucking human. It's like programmed in you from when you're a kid. But I also like really weird, like noisy stuff. Like there's a band called Current 93. Have you ever heard of them?
Current 93. No.
Just I can't even say that I like the band as such because there are many different things at many different times, and some of their albums are just crazy, just noisy stuff, and a lot of it is very questionable too. But that's stuff I don't have to answer for. But there's a couple of albums I listen to there occasionally when I'm just kind of want to kind of trip out a bit,
Yeah.
But
I'll
I mean,
look 'em up for sure.
I'm a sucker for fucking, I don't know. If my little sister puts on Jay-Z or whatever, now I'm all about it,
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Um, what are you most proud of in your career musically?
Jesus, you're already gone for
This
it
is
here, aren't you?
heavy. I mean, this is a pretty laid back show, but
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying I was having social issues last night, so I'm trying not to have them right now. So I'm proud when I can fight my antisocial behavior. What am I proud of? I get moments when I feel proud for sure, but it never lasts. And
yeah.
I know from what I came from and the environment I grew up in and how I learned to do what I do. I know I was one of the few who got to do a lot of things I did in my life from back then, for sure. Yeah, you're upsetting me now.
That wasn't the intention of the question.
Yeah.
I was thinking it'd be more like, music made you find your wife.
Well, that
I
is
thought that
true.
was, that's pretty heavy.
But that's not necessarily something I'm proud of. I'm proud of my wife, but I mean, that's pride. I wouldn't associate pride with that. No.
Yeah.
Pride is kind of ego, in a way. I mean,
Yeah, in a way it is for sure.
It's instinct and stuff, but it's kind of ego. Yeah, there were times when I moved over here when I was like, what the fuck have I done? And I moved over, like I said, originally I was with Muddy Roots, and then I wasn't, and then what I was left with all that time was like, if music goes nowhere and I've done that and it has brought me to my wife. I've told myself that millions of times. And my friends and my family. But in terms of being proud, it's just, I've achieved stuff that a lot of us when we were younger said we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think out of the people I grew up, I'm probably the only one,
Well, that's great.
So I'm kind of
Push
proud
through
of
and
that.
make it happen. All right, man. Last thing, then I'll let you go. Is there anything in the works as far as writing a new album?
No.
I mean,
really
it's
isn't.
always continually going, but I didn't know if there was any set schedule or time frame you're trying to hit to release something new.
No.
No, nothing yet.
Yeah, I had a hard time even saying that no for a while, but then gradually that last album I made, I put so much into it, and like it literally, like we spent. I didn't even. It's not even an expensive thing, but I spent everything I had trying to get that thing together. I had no idea what I was doing, but we did it. I still think it's it could have been prepared better and stuff, but I mean, it is what it is. And since then, I had, like I said, I mean, like I'm 40 now. that I released my first original songs album 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I had all my life trying to do that, you know.
Yeah.
And not that I think it's the finished thing, or not that I think it's what I was aiming to do and now I'm done, nothing like that. But I had like, what, 37, 38 years. That's how old I was, if you take away whatever, 15 years of that. So I don't know, 22, 23 years of wanting to do this thing. And then I did it, you know. And at the time, it was not a very pleasant experience. And I did it over here in Nashville with a lot of people I didn't know. And it just, you know, I'm proud of the songs. I'm proud of the content I'm there. I'm proud of how it feels. But, you know, it just could have been tighter, and it could have been maybe rehearsed and all that kind of stuff that people do that I just didn't do. I mean, I sat in the middle of that room without the headphones, without anything, and just sang and played live the whole album. There's no, I'm not edited anywhere. I'm not like, actually there was, sometimes we did 2 takes and they might have put in a bit of the second take. But as far as my performance goes on there, the whole thing is completely live. So with that, you get a little bit of a, it's not so like click tracky, you know. When you listen to the record, you hear everything's kind of snug and tidy and slipped in. Because I'm just in the room just doing it, and a couple of things were maybe added later, it's a little bit not so click tracky, you know.
Only a guy like you is in tune with it.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, that sounds great.
Yeah, I'm just also too, I don't know, man, like up to that point there was a certain flavor in everything I was doing, and I don't know, I'm resetting to a different place, and I'm just trying to let that happen, you know. And I'm going to try not be lazy about it and try not to tell myself, you know, I'm going to reset for the next 20 years. But at some point I'm going to kick myself up the arse. I'm going to do something. But for now, I'm just going to let myself settle into whatever it is I'm becoming, you know.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it, really.
Good deal. Well, I appreciate you, man, being on and sharing everything with me. You got a website, right? Where can people find everything?
Checkmeout.com.
Checkmeout.com.
Yeah, DylanWalshe.com. DylanWalshe. I should also say that I started an interview series. Well, it's not really an interview series. It's kind of a montage of conversation. That sounds wishy-washy, but it's called the Stirring Foot, STIRRING, and I talked to some people I've met throughout my life, or I would consider them pioneers in music, you know. Ramblin' Jack Elliott, Steve Ignorant of Crass, and the one I just finished, well, I haven't uploaded it yet, but it's John Sheehan of the original, well, not the original, the definitive lineup of the Dubliners, who are a very influential Irish folk band. Do you know the Dubliners?
Yeah.
Do you know the Pogues?
Huh?
Do you know the Pogues?
No.
So there's the Clancy Brothers in my head. There's the Clancy Brothers, the Dubliners, Planksty. There's a few others. And the Pogues. You know, they're the 4 bands, and mostly because they didn't just play traditional Irish music, they involved songs in their repertoire. They put the songs first. And the Dubliners started in around 62. And John Sheehan is the last surviving member of the definitive lineup, because he didn't join till about 64. He wasn't an original member. And he just released his debut album at 82. I think he's 82, 83. So I had a chat with him. And that's the latest episode.
Yeah. I forgot. I was going to bring that up too. I've tuned in on that. And I also heard your, with Ramblin' Jack interview, and you were on American Songcatcher.
Yeah, well, it was kind of his fault. Yeah, well, it was his fault because I had tried to... I did a radio show first at home in Wicklow in Ireland. It was a folk show. And then I did some online stuff and interviews, and I had the gear, I had the stuff. I was like, you know, I got to do something.
Yeah.
Nicholas was like, do an episode for American Songcatcher. And I was like, fuck, man, that's a great idea. And then I just didn't have the time. But that original idea never left me, so I just ended up doing my own at a later time. And he used the part of it for the show. So we were still able to link up, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I was able to watch him perform this summer too, and we talked quite a bit at a festival.
Where was he at?
That was there in Tennessee as well, Birds Creek
Okay.
Festival.
Was it Knoxville or something?
No, well, it's that way, but it's gosh, what was the name of the town? Well, it wasn't far from Cookville, Crossville. It was in Crossville, Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do that every year. That'd be a great place for you to play.
Yeah, well.
I'll put in the good word.
Yeah. I won't stop you.
Yeah. And while we're talking about other shows, I think I'm gonna try and put something here in Indiana for an annual deal, not necessarily a festival, but just a show.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure what charity yet, but I think a lot of the proceeds will go to some sort of charity. But if we could ever fit you in, I'd love to have you come up and play.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, I've been through managers, agents, labels. I mean, they were all small stuff, you know, not big stuff. And I feel like post-pandemic is very much like this, you know. It's just like personal, shared times with people who leads to gigs and back to that kind of, you know. Hey,
Yeah.
I'll hit up Tom, you know, and fucking, I'll talk to Jerry, you know.
House party at the yeah.
I think agents, I mean, it's in a certain level of the business, they're obviously essential. But I think
Right.
down in the grassroots, it's back to the artists again, you know. Promoters are preferring to talk to the artists again. That's been
Yeah.
my experience anyway.
Yeah, I've had mixed feelings with it as far as trying to line up, say, podcasts like this. Sometimes you don't get a reply back from when I talk to a publicist or whatever. But when I talk to them in person, they're like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I'm like, "All right."
It's always like that. You will find mostly the artists are pretty cool and accessible, but you just gotta get to them.
Yeah,
You know, and that sounds like a contradiction, saying you gotta get them there. Them themselves are pretty cool. Even when you tour with big bands and stuff, mostly the musicians are great. Now I can't speak for everybody. I'm sure people have had terrible experiences, you know. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like it's the roadies and like, you know, the tour manager who's always kind of like, you know, they're always the one kind of prepared to give you a bit of shit, you know. But
right.
I think it's just the same. Yeah.
So, all right, man. We'll be in
Daydreaming now.
touch, and appreciate you being on. I'll hit
Yeah.
you up next time I'm in Tennessee. I think I'll be down in. Well, I'm actually going to see Sierra Farrell play at the Ryman in December.
Oh, that's the New Year's Eve show, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, she's doing well, man.
she is doing good. So
I saw she's going to Ireland as well. She's going to Dublin. She lives here. She's around here a lot.
yeah, yep, she's a good friend. So, all right, buddy, take care.
All right. Well, hopefully I didn't talk too much shit, so there you go.
No, you did perfect.
I'll see you later, man.
Later.